pages before we'd even left the room, so that was excellent.
Yes.
But we also used the break, Chair, to paginate just a few more documents that I want to hand up now, if I may, because it picks up on a matter that Ms. Mamela testified about just before the break. I hadn't anticipated that there might be a difference in her recollection from the facts as I had them. So we just went to go and get the records. What they are is a communication October 2015. Ms. Mamela, you'll recall I asked you when JM Aviation was added to the database at SART. So I just want to have, for your benefit, the records of that. So if I may beg leave to hand up the copies. Mm-hmm. They have been paginated all ready to go at the end of Exhibit DD 25B.
Okay.
We'll start with those documents, and they've been paginated to commence at page 698, and that is in Exhibit DD 25B.
Yes. Ms. Mamela, have you got the pages?
I have the pages, Chair.
Yeah. Yes.
698, Chair.
Yes.
If we start at the bottom of that page, in the email that appears in the last half, Ms. Mamela, can you tell us who sent that email and to whom?
It was Ms. Kosi Sokulu to myself.
And the subject of the email?
JM Aviation Company documents.
And the date of the email?
13 October 2015.
And could you read into the record what she says to you in that email?
Good day, Nonzasa. It was a great pleasure to finally meet you on Friday, 2 October. Please find JM Aviation South Africa's company documents attached as requested. We look forward to the opportunity to be of service.
So you'll recall in your evidence earlier, I asked if you could recall when you first met Ms. Sokulu.
Yeah.
Has this assisted you with that recollection?
It assists, yes.
So it was, in fact, on the 2nd of October 2015 that you met her?
Yes, okay.
And then these documents were forwarded to you on the 13th of October. What did you then do?
I forwarded them to the list of guys, like at procurement, and one BEE officer.
Yes, and that you see at the top email on that page 698, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you request that the company be added to the database, is that correct?
Yeah.
Do you know if that occurred?
If that occurred, that I didn't follow up. Like, remember, there is, as I said, a person who's responsible for BEE and supply development.
Yes.
Yeah.
You facilitated them getting onto the database, and amongst the documents that they had to submit, if you'll turn to page 727.
Yeah.
Yes. 727, what is that document?
It states like the shareholders of JM.
Yes, and can you read into the record who those shareholders are and what proportions they hold as shares in the company?
Yes, sir.
Maybe before that, just say who the letter comes from and so on. Synergy, it comes from Synergy Chartered Accountants, that's right? Ms. Mamela?
Okay, it's the document of the supplier, so I'll the document.
No, I just want you to identify who the document came from.
On the letterhead is Synergy Chartered Accountants.
Yes, and it's written by T. Nyepa, NYEPA.
Yeah.
And it's addressed to whom it may concern.
Yes.
And then the subject, you can read the subject, and then you can identify the shareholders. Actually, you can read the letter because that will give a complete picture.
Okay. Dear Sir, Madam, we hereby confirm that we are the duly appointed auditors of the above-mentioned entity, and we hereby confirm the entity's shareholding as follows: Ms. M.V. Sokulu, 35%, Ms. I.N. Van Loo, 30%, Mr. J.S., 15%, Mr. V.A. Zegu, 20%. Kindly contact the undersigned hereof should you require any further clarification.
Thank you. Ms. Mamela, you just left out the title of the letter, the subject. What is that?
Okay, read JM Aviation South Africa Pty Ltd, company registration number 2015/053564/07, shareholding confirmation.
And the date of the letter?
The date of the letter is 18th January 2016.
Can you tell me when you met with Ms. Sokulu on the 2nd of October 2015, what were the circumstances around that meeting?
Okay, Chair, I would not remember because I didn't have the information in front of me, but one thing I would remember is that I've met so many BE companies, especially after their workshop in 2015 and stuff so. I'm sure it was definitely about them being added into a database and what is it that is expected from them? They should not front and all those kind of schooling and training.
Do you know that she was not a director of JM Aviation at that time?
I don't know.
Was your understanding from the interaction that she did have a role to play there?
Okay, there are certain questions that you ask, the suppliers. Remember, the board or the chairpersons of the board, ran the workshops, to actually address, the supply development and the lack of, having BEE companies, into the database of SAT and stuff so. There were certain questions that they were asked, questions okay, will they be able to provide or supply certain things and stuff and then to question who is the director at that time or who is not, it was not part of the,
Right.
Yeah.
But I think, given this refreshing of your memory, would it be fair to say that, at least by the end of 2015, you knew Mr. Nzeku, Ms. Sokulu, and JM Aviation?
Yes, based on this information.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd now like to move to Cove Ridge, because part of
I'm sorry, you say based on this information.
Yes, based on the information here that I received.
You're not talking about the letter at 727, because the letter 727 is 18 January 2016.
Yes, no, I'm talking about the email
about
that
other
was sent.
documents.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that clarification. I'd like to just explore Cove Ridge a little bit more, because your evidence previously indicated that that was a property in the Eastern Cape that you were interested in buying. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And for what purpose was that?
It was for the purpose of business, renting out, and
Renting out.
Yeah,
So
business purposes.
Business purposes.
Yes.
Okay. And was it a developed property?
It was not a developed property. It was in the process of being developed.
Right.
Yeah.
And you indicated that your mother had said to you she wanted to assist with a deposit on that property. Is that right?
That's correct.
And what was the sale price of that property?
I think if I remember correctly, Chair, it was 2.8.
And how much was the deposit of that purchase price?
I think we're going to pay half of that, and then get the amount from the bank, the remaining amount from the bank.
Right.
But it did not continue; it was cancelled.
Were you looking, Ms. Hofmeyer, for the deposit that was paid or for the deposit that was required?
The deposit that was required. I think.
Yeah. What was the deposit that was required?
The deposit that was required, I think. I don't remember, if it's written here, but, there was a certain amount that was required. But, the cost of the land was 2.8 of the
Okay,
property.
the one that you say you paid, which was, you said, about half, or would have been more than the deposit that was required by the bank?
It would have been half of what was required.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
So
but it
just-
was not finalized.
So just so I can clarify, the purchase price was 2.8, the deposit was about half of that, and the remainder would be made up by a bank mortgage. Is that correct?
I think that's correct, but I'm just checking quickly if it's not recorded.
if you tell Ms. Hofmeyer what document you are looking for, she might be able to help you.
Okay, I'm looking for the purchase of the coverage.
Oh, yes. Can I just finish one or two more questions and then we'll go there because it'll follow the flow. And then can I just understand the arrangement with your mother was that the deposit that she was going to assist with on Cove Ridge would then be redirected to your Bedford View house when Cove Ridge was cancelled. Is that correct? If you'll just
please
put your...
switch on your mic again and then give
Sorry,
that
Chair.
answer again. Give that answer again.
Yes, like, I mean, the deposit that was meant for coverage, like, then was gonna be later directed to the Bedford View house.
And when did you find the Bedford View house? Do you recall that?
I think it was around Feb. I don't remember the exact date.
No, of course.
Yeah.
That's February 2016, is that right?
Yeah, I'm saying like I don't remember the exact date.
No,
so,
I thought you meant the day in February, but you said February.
Yeah, I think somewhere in Feb. Like
right.
I'm saying, I'm not.
But
I don't remember.
I'm just identifying the year. February?
I think 2016.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Because you're in 2015
Yeah.
when you're engaged in the Cove Ridge transaction, is that right?
That's
Then you find the property in Bedford View, is that correct?
That's correct.
And at that point, you cancel the Cove Ridge so that you can pursue the Bedford View property, is that correct?
That's correct.
What was the sale price on the Bedford View property?
Chair, this is one of the questions that I had said, like, I mean, I would ask you if I'm obliged to answer and stuff, like, because I'm really trying to figure out, like, I mean, how is my purchase of my house, like, I mean, relevant to what I'm here for, which is
Yes,
the
well,
component
you
tender.
see, the reason why Ms. Hofmeyer is asking about details about the purchase of your house and the money that was paid in regard to it that came from either Mr. Nzegu or JM is to see whether there may have been anything improper about the payment of that amount in regard to your house in circumstances where you were head of procurement at SAT and Mr. Nzegu was a director of JM, and at a certain stage it was putting in bids. So these questions are just to check whether there was nothing improper. So from my point of view, there should be no problem in answering it. But you remember what we said at the beginning. If you feel that answering that question is going to be, you're going to be incriminating yourself, you must indicate. But on the face of it, I don't see a problem. But I don't know as much as you know about those transactions.
Yeah. Chair, like, I think the reason why I'm raising this, I'm not running away from accountability or maybe responding to the facts and stating my own facts. But like I think, like, I mean, you remember before the break, I did ask, like, what is the link between my property and the transactions that we're talking about now? I think, like, that will give me an indication of where she's heading.
No, you need not know where she's heading.
Yeah.
You must just answer the question. You don't need to worry about where she may be heading.
Okay.
But as I said, you know, if you feel strongly that maybe if you answer the question you might be incriminating yourself, we will hear from you, you indicate. But if you feel comfortable to answer the question, don't worry about where she may be heading. Is that all right?
That is all right, Chair.
Okay, all right.
Do you remember the question?
We want to be fair to everybody. We want to be fair to you. We need to ask certain questions to establish what happened, but we want to make sure that as we do that, there is fairness, but at the same time, we must try and get to the bottom of the situation. Okay. All right, thank you.
The question was, what was the sale price of the Bedford View house?
It was 3.8.
3.8 million. So I assume, based on your previous testimony, that 3.8 million plus 2.8 million at the same time, if you had a liability for both, wouldn't have been a liability you could meet. Is that correct?
If I've had the liability for both,
Yes.
okay, I wouldn't continue with both of them.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So as I understand it, once you'd found the Bedford View house, you then had decided to cancel the coverage. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Sambo gave an account in her evidence about an interaction she'd had with you around this property. And you, in fact, responded to what she had said in your cross-examination application and your statement that you confirmed this morning under oath. I'd like to take you to two aspects of it.
Okay.
You'll find that in the cross-examination application in front of you, numbered 04 of 2020, and the part of your statement that I want to pick up at is at page 8. At page 8 there, you commence dealing with this aspect at paragraph 8.5. Mm-hmm. You say there, I deny and refute the allegation as misrepresentation of facts by Ms. Sambo in that she was not that close to me as a friend for me to discuss my intention to buy my property. In brackets, people who are close to me would testify to this, that I never share my private information with anyone except one has something to do with such information. Close brackets. Then you go on and say, the bank has never declined my application. Instead, in 2015, the banks had been very strict in approving a 100% bond, but they were mostly approving a certain percentage of the bond requiring a deposit which had nothing to do with Mrs. Kwinana and Mr. Zwane. Mm-hmm. And then you go on and explain how that deposit was going to be paid. I just want to pause there. Do you maintain in your evidence today that this payment of this deposit had nothing to do with Ms. Kwinana or Mr. Zwane?
I maintain that.
And then if we can go to paragraph 8.6. You say there, during 2016, Ms. Sambo called me, congratulating me and informing me that she'd heard that I'd moved to a new home and asked where it was. I told her it was in Bedford View. That was only from that call she learned about my property in Bedford View. I remember she asked me to send her a photo, which I did, and her comment was, wow, this one cannot be less than 10 million rand. And that time I had not picked up her bitterness towards me. I innocently responded that it was not even close to 4 million and added that my salary would not be sufficient enough to even attempt to purchase a property for 10 million. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Why did you say to Ms. Sambo that the property was not even close to 4 million?
Because it was not 4 million. I guess because I said it's 3.8.
So is 3.8 not close to 4 million?
Okay, it is close, but I'm not sure about where that question is going. But it is close to 4 million.
But then why did you tell her it wasn't close to 4 million?
No, but there are things that you disclose to certain people and stuff. I was not going to disclose that to Ms. Sambo. It's not like she was investigating, or maybe I owed her any information about my property.
But you volunteered information about its sale price as not being close to 4 million. That was false, correct?
Okay, me saying it to Ms. Sambo that it was not close to 4 million. So
Yes, that's what Ms. Hofmeyer is putting to you, whether you admit that saying that the property was not close to 4 million rand was not true.
Yeah, but she did not ask for about 4 million. She talked about 10 million. So it was just me responding. So I was writing what I had said when I was talking to her. So this is not about 4 million or anything. I'm the one who actually came up with 4 million. She I suspected that it was over 10 million.
Yes.
So I'm not sure how maybe saying not close to 4 million to Ms. Sambo stands to prove that maybe I was lying to her or I had to. I'm not sure. Maybe I don't understand.
Well, no. Let's do it this way.
Yeah.
Am I correct that your property, the purchase price of your property was 3.8 million?
Yes, Chair.
Am I correct that Ms. Sambo said to you that house, after seeing the picture, could not be less than 10 million rand.
Yes, it was just an informal
Yes.
conversation, yeah.
Is it correct that in responding to her, you said the house was not even close to 4 million rand?
Yes, I did say that.
Is 3.8 million rand close or not close to 4 million rand?
It is close to 4 million rand, Chair, but that responding to Sbongile was not something that I was under oath.
Yes, no.
Exactly. Yeah,
We'll get there. So you accept that it is close to 4 million rand?
Yes, Chair.
Yes. And you accept that what you said was not true?
Yes, it was not.
Okay. Do you want to provide an explanation why you said it was not close to 4 million rand?
There is no one so far that I had given the exact answer of how much my house is. It's either I change, because I never really disclose such information to anyone. In fact, even my first property in Douglasdale, Fourways, I've never told anyone how much it was.
But
So this here, it was just being me saying to a person who wants to know that, okay, it's not close to this. So I'm not sure, Chair, that maybe by saying that, I was supposed to tell her exactly how much.
Well, you might not have needed to tell her exactly how much it was.
Yeah.
But you could have said it's not even close to 10 million and left it at that. And that would have been true, isn't it?
Okay, but an informal conversation between two people versus me sitting here taking an oath is different. What I say out there, because I was just quoting what we had said to each other. Yes.
Ms. Hofmeyer, do you want to take that?
We don't need to take that further.
Okay.
Ms. Sambo has been given an opportunity to explain why she might have said something false to Ms. Sambo, but unless there's anything else she wants to add, we don't need to take that further. Thank you.
Okay.
I'd then like to move to that agreement, that purchase agreement for the Cove Ridge property that you requested you be directed to. It is in bundle DD25B, apologies, A, and you'll find it at page 370.
370.
Yes. Can you identify the document at 370?
Yes, I can.
Apologies, I see you're still getting there. What is that document?
It's a deed of sale,
Between what parties?
Slipknot Investment, and Nontsasa Memela.
And what page does that document end on?
It ends 374.
And was this the deed of sale for you to purchase the Cove Ridge property?
Yes.
Let's just go through it at page 371. I think you indicated in your evidence earlier that the purchase price was 2.8 million. You can see that on page 371. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you indicated earlier that there was a deposit amount and an amount that would be covered by the bond. Can you identify for us the clause that sets that out?
I didn't say there was a clause that will set that out.
Oh, but
Yeah,
it was part of the agreement.
It was part of the plan that the deposit will be paid, and then the remainder I'm going to get from the bank.
But would that not have to be set out in the agreement?
Okay, it was not in the agreement.
It wasn't.
It wasn't.
Do you know the requirements of the Alienation of Land Act for the identification of a purchase price for the sale of immovable property?
No, I don't.
Okay. And when was the purchase price required to be paid under this agreement?
It was required to be paid, if I remember correctly, after 90 days. But it was not an agent. An agent. I don't remember the days or maybe the months that it was required to be paid. So like I don't want to like say things that like when I find out, maybe when I go back to my files and stuff, like it does not support this. So I'm safe to say like I don't remember.
Well, it's about a 3-page document. We've looked at it. I struggled to find a provision that indicated when the purchase price had to be paid. Can you assist with that at all?
The part where it indicates?
When the purchase price had to be paid.
No, it's not here. That's why I'm saying like I don't remember like how long it was going to be. And then like it was not agent as well.
It was not agent. Just explain to us what that means.
I'm saying like it was not like something that was required to be paid like within 60 days or 90 days.
Sorry, so I'm just not sure I understand your testimony. I thought a moment ago you said it did have to be paid in 90 days.
I said I don't remember.
Right.
It may have been like 90 days or more.
But you agree that this agreement doesn't make any provision for when the purchase price has to be paid?
No, it doesn't.
And it doesn't contain a deposit provision nor a provision to get a bond?
No, it doesn't.
Right. And do you know who the owners and directors of Slipknot Investments were at the time that you purchased this property?
I'm not sure about like the directors or the owners of the, but like we signed like based on the company or maybe family trust or something. Yeah. But I know that like the person who signed for it like that I was buying from was. The person who signed was, I think, Yake Kwinana.
Yake Kwinana?
Yes.
The chair of the board of SART?
The former chairperson of the board of SART.
At the time that you concluded this agreement with her, she was the chair of the board of SART, is that correct? You can look at page 373.
373.
For the date, it's April 2015.
No, I don't remember, like, when did she become a chair of SART or not?
Was she known to you at SART at this time?
Yeah, like, she had known to me at SART.
Just for the record, she was the chair of the SART board at that stage. We have had evidence to that effect. And I see it was signed in Centurion on the 21st of April. Do you recall who the witnesses were of this agreement?
No, I don't recall.
The signature of the seller there, who was that? On page 373.
I think the seller on behalf of the Slipknot was signed by Ms. Yake Kwinana. Yeah.
Yeah. You would be able to identify her signature anyway, or did she sign in your presence? Everybody seems to have signed on the 21st April 2015.
Yeah, I think we signed at the same, but like I can't confirm.
Were you all at the same place when you signed?
I think so, yes.
So you would know that she signed here?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And in any event, that signature would be a signature that you are familiar with, having worked with her for quite some time? Or not really?
Yeah, having seen like on the
in
board
other
resolutions.
documents?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
The witnesses appear to have been the same witnesses, so I think...
it was signed at the same place.
Same place,
like it,
indeed.
Yeah.
And you can confirm Ms. Kwinana signed it for the seller and you signed it as purchaser, is that correct?
That's correct.
Would the witnesses have been people that came with her to the place where the signing took place, or would one of them have come with you, or would both have come with you, or was it people that were just grabbed as they were passing?
No, shame. No, I think, like, if I remember correctly, but like I might be wrong, but I think it was signed at the law firm.
Okay.
And then like maybe some of
so
the...
it would have been the staff at the law firm that may have signed.
Yes,
as
or maybe
witnesses.
people that she came with or
Yeah,
something.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Which law firm would that be?
I think it will be El Mbanjwa law firm.
Is that the law firm that was going to take care of the transfer of the
Yeah.
property as indicated at page 371?
Yes.
Thank you. And can you just assist me with a sale agreement for 2.8 million rand that doesn't indicate when the purchase price needs to be paid. Was that not an issue for Ms. Kwinana when she entered into this agreement with you?
Like, she did not raise an issue. Of course, like, if it's like, drafted by the lawyers, there were witnesses and stuff, like, we knew what we were agreeing on. Yeah.
When did you think the purchase price had to be paid?
I don't remember. Yeah.
But what is also clear is that there was no deposit provision for this agreement, was there?
Like, it was, like, I think, a verbal agreement, but, like, it was not included into the agreement, I guess.
And are you aware, you said previously you weren't aware of the provisions of the Alienation of Land Act, but are you aware that those agreements for the sale of immovable property, unlike other agreements, do have to be reduced to writing in their terms?
For it to be valid?
Yes.
So, like, you're saying that now that, like, this might be invalid, like, doesn't, like, that differ from one lawyer to another?
No, I would not think it differs from one lawyer to another, but I don't think we need to have a legal debate.
Yes, on some of these legal issues, I think Ms. Hofmeyr is asking so that you can give an answer based on what you know, and if you don't know, it's fine. Part of the reason is that you are a lawyer, so you might know, but you might not know. Law is too wide. So feel free to give what you understand to be the position.
I did say to her, like, earlier on that I don't know.
Yes,
And, like,
that's
yeah.
fine. No, but I'm just clarifying so that you don't wonder why some of the questions are legal. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. And then if we can move to the deposit that your mother was going to pay, because
I'm sorry, before that, Ms. Hofmeyr. So, Ms. Memela, can you tell me how it came about that you went to, how it came about that you concluded this agreement with Slipknot Investments Pty Limited, represented by Ms. Kwinana? How did it come about? How did this, what happened? Okay,
Chair, Ms. Kwinana, of course, like, many people know her as, like, the chairperson of, like, a former chairperson of SAT, like you do.
Yes.
And, like, I can say now, confidently so, that, like, she was not playing that role alone, like, as the chairperson. Like, she would play a role of, like, a sister advice, like, in terms of investment and stuff. She's in a space of, like, property development, and, like, she would mention that, okay, this is what I'm doing, and, like, if you want to invest, like, you could do that and do that. So, like, we started talking about that, like, and then I was interested in investing there. Yeah.
When you talked about when you had discussions that led to the signing of this agreement, were the two of you quite close or not really?
Like, we were, like, what, professional close?
Yes. So she came to understand that you were looking at buying property, and she told you about a property that was on the market.
That she was developing. Yes, she's in a property development space, like, for quite some time. Yeah.
Okay. And you agreed on the price, and then she said, "I'll talk to my lawyers, and then they'll prepare an agreement."
Yes.
Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
And do you know whether this agreement was actually prepared by the lawyers? I know when I say whether you know whether they prepared it, you might say, I don't know if they actually prepared it, but it came from them.
Yes.
Did it come from them, as far as you know?
Yeah, my understanding, or what I had learned, was that they had been dealing with her properties and property development, like, all the deeds of sale, like, were done by them. So, like, going, like, from this property to the other, there would be just, like, entering, like, details of, like, the next purchaser, or, like, what investment and stuff. So, like, I would say I believed it came from her lawyers.
Yes, okay.
Thank you, Chair. Then just in relation to the deposit for this property, we've established that that was not reflected in the written agreement,
Yeah.
but I understand your evidence to be
The
there was
intention.
a deposit of about half of the value that was going to
The
be
intention,
paid.
yes.
And just so I get your evidence correct, once your mother had concluded the agreement with Mr. Nzeku to sell her properties, she was going to use the proceeds of that to assist you with
To
the
assist
deposit.
with
Is that
deposit.
correct?
Yeah, that's true.
So did your mother then receive the proceeds from the sale to Mr. Nzeku, which I understood was in about 2015, and then make it available for the deposit on this property?
No, it was made directly to the lawyers so that they can transfer to the lawyers that were responsible for the Bedford View house.
Right.
And then, yeah.
So who gave Mr. Nzeku the details about where to pay the money if your mother didn't pay it?
If my mother didn't pay
She
it,
didn't pay the deposit,
No,
as I
she-
understand
yeah.
your evidence.
Yeah.
It was that Mr. Nzeku, rather than paying her,
yeah, it should be.
was going to pay you directly.
Yes.
And he was going to pay to, did you say, the transferring attorneys?
It was going to come from Mr. Nzegu to the El Mbanjwa.
Right.
Yes, and then from El Mbanjwa to the transferring attorneys or registering attorneys, yes.
Right.
But Mbanjwa was not responsible for the transfer of the Bedford View property.
I understand.
Yeah.
So once Mr. Nzeku was to pay for the property he purchased in the Eastern Cape, he would just, in a sense, redirect that money straight to Alan Banjwa attorneys. Is
Yes.
that right?
Yes.
And by the time you'd found the Bedford View house, coverage was off the cards. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yes.
Thank you. And can I just understand the terms of your arrangement with your mother? Was it a loan? Were you going to be paying it back?
No, it was a donation. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, the cancellation of coverage took place when you'd found the Bedford View house. Is that right?
Yeah.
We still at the
I'm sorry,
agreement.
Ms. Hofmeyer, because I think you may have, you are almost through on this sale agreement. What is strange with this agreement is what Ms. Hofmeyer pointed out, namely, although there is a price, purchase price, there is no indication of when the purchaser would be obliged to pay it and whether it would be paid in installments. And it seems to me there is no indication that the agreement doesn't seem to say this is subject to getting a bond and so on.
Yeah.
When you signed it, were you aware of all of those things? That
Yes.
it did not
We-
deal with those things?
Yes, I went browse through.
Yeah.
And because they have been dealing with property development and using the same agreements and stuff. My understanding from the contracts and legal point of view, as much as I did say that the alienation of land, I would not be aware of, but there might be an agreement that provision of the agreement that is written down. But if the parties in the same mind and the intention, whatever that you are agreeing upon, that's acceptable. Yeah.
So so you say you thought that whatever verbal agreement you may have had with the seller
Yeah.
would be fine.
It would have been fine because we knew each other. We are she knew I wouldn't run away. And yes.
But you say you did go through the sale agreement before signing it.
Yes.
Yes. Did you see that at the end of it, that is clause 8, the last sentence, do you see that it says no agreement to cancel or alter or add to this agreement shall be of any force or effect unless signed by both the seller and the purchaser?
Yes, Chair.
You saw that? Did
Yeah.
you see the first sentence of the same paragraph which says this agreement constitutes the entire contract between the parties? And the next one that says the purchaser has not in making this offer relied on any warranty or representation not contained herein.
Yeah.
You saw all of those things?
I may have not, like, read, like, applying my mind on the whole, like, provision. But, like, I do know that, like, I picked up that, like, no cancellation or alteration will be done without the signature of the parties.
That first sentence that says the entire contract, it means you can't say there is another part of the agreement that is verbal.
Yes, I'm not
You
saying like,
accept that?
yes, Chair, I'm not saying there's another part. I'm saying like there was an intention to pay a deposit as soon as like, the property is sold and then like the money is like available. Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's just a very strange sale agreement of a property, which is quite an important asset for most of us, and at a quite high price, 2.8 million rand, where there is no indication as to when this would be paid, how it would be paid. Okay, all right, Ms. Hofmeyr.
Ms. Mamela, just before the Chair's latest comment, you testified that it was understood that the deposit would be paid
Yes.
with the purchase, when the purchase of your mother's properties went through. Is that correct?
That's correct.
The difficulty with that, Ms. Mamela, is that this agreement was concluded in April 2015.
Yeah.
You hadn't met Mr. Nzeku by then yet.
Like, remember, like, the deposit was not like entirely dependent on Mr. Nzeku. I said, like, my mother showed interest, like, in selling, like, the property, like, so that she can help me with the deposit.
Right, so it was your understanding that she was going to sell some property in the Eastern Cape.
Yes.
That was then going to form the basis of the deposit here.
Exactly. So,
But
like,
that was not included in the agreement.
not in the agreement. But,
No.
like, during the workshops, like, of the supply development and stuff, like I mentioned, like, to some of the BE suppliers, of, like, the intention to sell the land if anyone is interested in stuff like that's when then I mentioned to Mr. Nzeku, I think around, like, May, June.
And that would have facilitated you being able to get this property yourself. Is that correct?
Sorry, repeat that?
So you were speaking to people at the supplier development workshops.
Yeah.
To see if they were interested in buying your mother's property.
No, not people, like, certain individuals, like, BEE people, like,
Right.
especially, okay, I don't know if you'll understand, but
Not the whole audience, you mean?
yeah,
just
yes,
some of the
exactly,
people.
Oh,
yes,
indeed.
some of them.
Apologies.
Like, exactly. So, like, I just wanted to explain to you that, like, sometimes, like, when you meet a person coming from the same culture or same tribe as you, like, you get to talk, like, a lot and stuff, like, and catch up and get to share certain, like, information. I will, like, make an example, Chair, that, like, maybe when you walk into the lift and then you meet somebody and they say Molweni, you feel like, okay, you've met your brother or your sister, and then you start talking and chatting and discussing. Like, so it was not the whole audience.
No, and forgive me if that was the way my question came across.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get the chronology right. So you conclude an agreement in April of 2015 with Ms. Kwinana's company, Slipknot Investment,
Yeah.
to buy a property worth 2.8 million, correct? At that stage, the intention is your mother's going to try and sell some properties in the Eastern Cape
Yes.
to assist you with a deposit on this property.
Yes.
You then go to supplier development workshops in May of 2015, and you speak to some people at those workshops about the property that your mother is selling. Is that correct?
Okay, Chair, let me correct this part. Like, it's not like I went to the workshop to talk about the property. The property was just part of the discussion. Like, I went to the workshop, like, for supply development to introduce, like, BEE companies into the database and all that, like, and understand that, like, they are welcome to come and be added into a database. So, like, the discussion would, like, be added, like, during the discussion or maybe afterwards. And so I'm not saying, like, I went to the workshop, like, that's not the picture I'm trying to paint, that I went to the workshop, like, just to discuss the property.
Yeah, so you are saying that at some stage or another, while you were interacting with some individuals
Yes.
within the
Then
workshop
there will be this, yes.
and chatting, the topic
Then
cropped up one way or another.
Yes, Chair, then there
Yeah.
will be this topic. For instance, like, I will make an example with Ms. Sambo. we used to chat a lot about, her joining ventures, with aviation companies and then getting an office at, SAT, so that, she will be able to provide her services. But, on the same note, even if it's not the same time, she would say, okay, you know what, I'm interested in venturing into oil or fuel, and then, transporting fuel from this to that, and they said it makes a lot of money. So you discuss those kind of transactions with people, and then it depends if you are interested, you want to embark on it, or maybe if it does not interest you, then you leave it. So I'm trying to explain that the discussions were not necessarily about property or what.
So if any of the suppliers to whom you spoke at that workshop were interested in buying your mother's properties in the Eastern Cape, then you would be able to conclude this transaction with Slipknot Investment, is that right?
Yes, I would have been. Anybody, including Ms. Sambo, I would have been.
Yes,
Yeah.
and as it so happened, Mr. Nzeku was interested.
Yeah.
One last thing before we leave the agreement. You said that there was an understanding working alongside this agreement, notwithstanding the clause that the chair has taken you to, that there would be a purchase price paid at some time.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have an understanding from Ms. Kwinana what expectation she had in that regard? When was she expecting it to be paid?
I don't remember. Yeah, I
So
said,
it was actually open-ended then?
It was an open, I don't,
So she was going to sell a property of 2.8 million rand to you without clarity as to when she'd receive the money for it?
It was not in the contract, Chair, and I think, when she gets the chance to actually, to be on this chair, she'll be able to prove, show precedence that, there are lots of her other properties that, she had used the same template and stuff. I understand, that maybe because of a certain act, it should have been indicated, And I guess, I suspect also, because I don't remember very well, but I suspect that, maybe it may have not been indicated, the deposit, because we were not sure if, my mother's going to get a buyer during that time. So, I was either going to, rely on the bank or maybe take time or, sell, something else, to cover here and there. I do remember, Keith, I mentioned this during our meeting. I don't know if it was with you or the investigating team, that when I bought the Douglasdale property, I did not mention that I would pay the deposit, but when it became available, I paid it. And then I had a property in Bloemfontein for investment purposes in 2007. So those are the kind of things that you get interested in, and investing in property. So for me to go through this detail by detail, especially if you're buying it from somebody and who you know that they will not maybe run away, or maybe they will not say, change their mind later on and say, okay, I'm no longer selling property to you, or something like that.
Okay, she is Miss Hofmeyer.
Sorry?
She is Miss Hofmeyer.
What did I say?
Oh, Advocate Hofmeyer.
Oh, okay.
I think today you've been referring to me as Kate.
Yeah,
Kate, okay,
you have been
yeah.
referring, and I thought it was just
I'm
once,
sorry
then
if-
twice,
yeah.
so yeah, okay.
Ms. Mamela, let's just talk about the cancellation of this agreement. You indicated that once you'd found the Bedford View property, you cancelled it. There actually isn't an entitlement under this agreement to cancel it. Did you notice that?
There's no?
Entitlement to cancel.
It does not really have to be in the, to cancel the contract.
It's just
You
that
can-
usually sellers want to ensure that the purchasers are bound by the agreement. Do you accept that?
I accept that, but it does not necessarily mean that because there's no cancellation clause, you can't cancel.
No, that's
Yeah.
certainly not what I was suggesting.
Yeah.
I was asking for you to confirm that there isn't
Yeah.
an entitlement under the agreement for the purchaser to cancel it. Do you accept that?
Yeah, it's not here.
So did you have to secure Ms. Kwinana's agreement to the cancellation?
Yes, I think we signed some documentation, I may ask for it, and then we'll send it to you later.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Ms. Hofmeyer, clause 7 does seem to give the seller, does it not, the right to cancel if there is a breach.
Yes, sorry, but I was saying from the position of the purchaser cancelling.
Oh,
there
from
wasn't
the
a clause.
purchaser.
Yes.
Yes.
Because in this case, it's Ms. Mamela who later cancels because she's
Yes.
found the Bedford View property.
Yes.
But, yeah. But,
Okay.
yeah, I think Chair is correct because, like, I mean, under 8 as well, it says no agreement to cancel or alter unless signed by both parties. So I'm saying, like, there is a document that talks to the cancellation, and, like, I will find that and I will send it.
Right. We may have it ourselves, so I'll draw
Is it?
your attention to that in a moment when I get there.
All right.
But the facts, if you could just help us with those. At some point, did you approach Ms. Kwinana about cancelling it?
Yes, like, I mean, that's the discussion that should happen before you ask about, like, I mean, yeah.
And was she willing to agree?
She was not difficult about it because she understood that, like, it took longer, like, I mean, to get, like, to finalize that, this one, yeah.
Did she also appreciate your having found the Bedford View property and wanting to purchase that? Did you discuss that with her?
I discussed that with her, and then, like, I mean, she actually said, okay, like, I mean, if we still continue, like, you can still use El Mbanjwa, like, I mean, to get, like, I mean, the payment, and then we'll use I remember the reference was her name or something.
Thank you. Are you aware that the money that Mr. Nzeku had committed to pay your mother for the purchase of the properties was paid much later than you actually concluded your Bedford View sale?
Yeah.
Do you recall when he paid the money?
I don't remember when the money was paid. Yeah. But, like, I mean, it took longer. Like, I mean, I think it took longer to finalize and then, like, for him to get the amount, like, to send to El Mbanjwa.
Did you have discussions with him about that?
Like, he had discussions with my mother. So, like,
With
yeah.
your mother?
Yeah.
Right. Because they concluded their agreement in 2015, is that correct?
Yeah.
And he paid in May of 2016, is that correct?
That's correct.
Right. But it was okay because you'd already cancelled the agreement once you'd purchased the Bedford View property,
Yes.
is that correct?
That's correct.
Let's go to the cancellation that you agreed with Ms. Kwinana. You'll find that in DD 25A at page 397. Is that the cancellation that you were referring to?
I think it's the one, but, like, I think there was some sort of an agreement attached that was supposed to be attached to this one. I will try and find it.
If we can just go through what this letter contains, can you tell us to whom it's addressed?
Attention, Kwinana Consult, or dear Mrs. Kwinana.
And the title of it?
Formal cancellation of sale portion 11 of Farm 925, Cove Ridge, East London.
And can you confirm that you prepared this letter?
Yes, I wrote the letter.
And is that your signature at the bottom of the letter?
That's the signature.
And let's look at what you said in the first paragraph. Can you read that into the record?
I refer to the above mentioned sale and confirm my intention to cancel the transaction as proclamation is taking longer than anticipated, and I have since identified a residential property in Bedford View that I am interested in buying.
What did you mean when you referred to proclamation taking longer than expected?
Like, I mean, they were talking about, like, I mean, certain things that, like, had to be approved and stuff. Like, I wouldn't remember, like, I mean, detail by detail.
Because I thought your evidence previous was that what was taking long was your ability to get the deposit or the bond. Is that not correct?
No. Like, I mean, I did not say that, like, that what was taking longer, it was because of the deposit. I said, like, the transaction took longer than anticipated.
Right.
Yeah.
But once you'd found the Bedford View property, you were now going with it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then you go on and say in the second paragraph, if you'd read that into the record.
Therefore, this is a formal cancellation of the above transaction, the deposit of which will be used on the sale of the aforementioned house in Bedford View. The monies that were paid to Elmbanjwa Incorporated in respect of this transaction should now be paid over to the seller's attorneys, being Fiber Sabelo Eldestein, with account number.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What is the date of this letter?
It's 7 May 2016.
You had purchased the property in Bedford View in February of 2016, had you not?
There's a difference between purchasing and making an offer to purchase.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I did not purchase. I made an offer to purchase around February.
Yes, and when it's accepted, then you're bound by it. Is that correct?
Like, I mean, once it's accepted, like, you're bound by it. But,
Yes.
like, I mean, remember, there's also a cooling off period and stuff
Yes.
like. But yeah. But also, like, I don't remember, like, the bond, say, like, when it was
Yeah, 60
approved.
days.
Yeah.
It had to be secured within 60 days of the February 2016 acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
So you had already committed on the Bedford View property in February of 2016,
Yeah.
correct?
Correct.
Why did you cancel this agreement only on the 7th of May 2016 then?
Because, like, I mean, there's no way that I was going to continue with both of them.
But then why didn't you
And
cancel
it was taking,
in...
like, I mean, longer also to, you know, like, I mean, and I saw that, like, I mean, I should focus on the one that is the residential property.
Ms. Mamela, your testimony earlier was that once you'd identified the Bedford View property, there was no way that you could afford 3.8 million plus 2.8 million, and so you cancelled the Cove Ridge transaction. Do you recall that evidence?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying now, that, like, I mean, there's no way that I will continue with both the properties.
Yes.
So, like, I mean, I did mention, Chair, that, like, I mean, I may not remember the dates and when, like, was it cancelled and, like, when, but I do know that, like, I made an offer to purchase in February. Yeah, so I'm not sure, like, I mean, if, like, you're getting my answers correct or
No, I
something.
am.
Yeah.
Let me be clear about what I'm struggling with. Your previous testimony was once you had secured the arrangement for the Bedford View property sale, you could not continue with the Cove Ridge property transaction. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That occurred in February of 2016.
The offer
Correct.
to purchase was done in February
Yes,
2016.
and accepted in February 2016.
Yes,
Correct.
correct.
So that is a valid agreement of sale for the
Yes.
Bedford View property in February of 2016.
2016, yeah.
Correct. Your testimony earlier was once you had done that, you cancelled the agreement on the Cove Ridge property. Do you recall giving that evidence?
Yes, like, I mean, here it was cancelled. Like, here is the letter. I said to you, like, I will find something like that talks to that.
Yes, and
so,
we
like, I
have-
mean, your struggle is, like, now on the dates.
It is
that it was
precisely.
cancelled. So, like, I mean, you, I don't know, Chair, if, like, she's expecting me to have cancelled it, like, immediately in January, or maybe that's the impression that I gave her when I responded.
Well, just answer to the best of your recollection and knowledge. She's going to. She says that what she's struggling with are the dates. Now, you might or might not recall the dates, but she appreciates that 2015 is quite some time back. But I think just do your best. Okay. Ms. Hofmeyer, do you want to repeat the question?
Yes, I indicated in the lead-in it was the dates, Chair, that were troubling me because I'd understood Ms. Kwinana's previous evidence to be once Bedford View was secured, Cove Ridge was no longer an option, right?
Yeah.
And what I can't understand
No,
then is
Chair.
why...
No,
if I
Chair,
could
like
finish
that.
my
Yeah.
question?
Let her finish, Ms.
Okay.
Just don't forget what you wanted to say.
Okay.
If once the Bedford View property had been secured, and your previous evidence was then there was no reason to continue with Cove Ridge, why did you wait until May of 2016 only to cancel the Cove Ridge transaction?
Okay. I did not, like, maybe I must just like repeat again that like maybe my intention, like, I mean, it's not what she had interpreted my answer to be. My answer is that, like, I mean, we still cancelled like the coverage property. And like, I mean, after I had identified like the Bedford View in February, you know, so like, I mean, I think then, like, I mean, we are struggling about like between, with the period between Feb and May.
Is the period close to a year?
No, it's a matter of
How long
3
is the
months.
period?
It's the same
Is it 3
year.
months?
So it's February 2016
Yes.
to May of 2016.
Yes.
And the challenge for me, let me make it clear, is that between February 2016, you had obligations under the Bedford View property to pay 3.8 million to the sellers. And at the same time, you had an obligation to pay 2.8 million to Slipknot Investments. And that persisted for 3 further months until you cancelled. And I'd understood your previous evidence to be you could not entertain 2 liabilities like that. And that is why once you secured Bedford View, you cancelled coverage.
Yeah. Chair, like for me, or maybe for me and Ms. Yake, we did not, like, I mean, see any difference, like, between cancelling when or...
Yes.
Because, like, I did notify her that, like, you see, I've identified this, and I think I'm going to be focusing on it. So, like, it might happen that, like, we had agreed verbally, and then, like, I mean,
Yes.
we cancelled later on after 2 months, yeah.
Yes, okay.
The other reason why the date troubles me a bit, Ms. Mamela, is that it's 2 days after the deposit was received from JM Aviation. Are you aware of that?
Not aware.
I'm sorry,
Remember,
what is 2 days after receipt of the deposit?
So, Chair, at 397, this Slipknot Investments purchase agreement is cancelled on the 7th of May 2016.
Yes.
If you go back 2 pages in the file to page 395,
Yes.
that is the records of the bank account of L. Mbanjwa attorneys,
Yes.
to whom Mr. Nzeku, it is claimed, paid the deposit amount of 2.5 million.
Yes.
And that you will see reflected in the 5th line on that page. He paid that in on the 5th of May 2016. That was my reference to 2 days earlier.
Yes.
Were you aware that he'd paid it in 2 days earlier?
I was not aware until you, or like Andrew, showed this to me. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, had you been led to believe by your mother that the deposit had been paid earlier?
No, she did not discuss that. Like, I mean, the only interest that she showed, Chair, was that, like, she was going to, like, help me with the deposit. And the deposit was going to be 1.5, and then the remainder, like, was going to help with the legal fees, together with my husband's deposit. And then, like, the remainder was going to also go to her.
So do you have any understanding why Ms. Nzeku waited so long to pay that deposit for the transaction with your mother?
I think, like, I mean, the person will be in a right position to answer that. It will be Mr. Nzeku.
No, I'm just asking whether you have any knowledge about why he delayed till the 5th of May.
I have no knowledge, or I don't remember.
And if you just look at that 5th line on the page,
Which page?
395. You'll see there the date of 5 May in the 5th line, and it says under the first column, internet banking payment from, and then you'll see a description for the payment. Do you see that?
Yes, that's what I mentioned earlier on, that, like, Ms. Kwinana was used as a reference.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it says consulting Kwinana there.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea why it would say consulting Kwinana?
Consulting Kwinana, I think maybe it was her consulting company. I don't know. Like,
Yes.
I think she'll be the right person to answer.
See,
But,
just
like, my understanding is that, like, I mean, the reason why she was used as a reference is that, like, I was buying from her, like, her property and stuff, like, and then now for Mbanjwa to be able to pick up the deposit, like, was to highlight that, like, I mean, Kwinana is, like, because remember, they were her main lawyers all this time. So, like, that was the reason why. Like,
No, I understand possibly the reference to Kwinana. What I'm struggling with is consulting. Do you have any idea why consulting would be the description?
No, I
Because
think
this had nothing to do with consulting, did it?
of course it had nothing to do with consulting. I don't know, like between Kwinana and Mbanjwa, what is their relationship in terms of consulting or whatever, but like I don't want to answer on behalf of.
Of course.
Like, yeah.
I was simply interested in whether you had any knowledge as to why it would be described as a consulting payment.
No.
Well, the letter of cancellation that we talked about a few minutes ago at page 397 that you wrote to Slipknot Investments said, attention, Kwinana Consult. What is that? Is that a company, a firm belonging to Miss Kwinana, or what was it?
I don't remember, Chair. I don't remember. I think like if I may.
But you would have known it at that time, at least.
Yes, I'm saying like if I may, like maybe that's what she said. Like I must refer it as like when I saw that like it's in line with like the reference to the lawyers.
Mm. Yeah. And so I'm wondering, Ms. Hofmeyer, whether consulting Kwinana that appears there at page 395 is meant to say this was for consulting services, or whether it refers to an entity. I see that at the top of the column it says description. Yeah.
Chair, I take the point. Let me follow up, if I may, with Ms. Mamela about that.
Yes.
Let's assume, for present purposes, that there is an entity, Kwinana Consulting. This arrangement that your mother had with Mr. Nzeku had nothing to do with Kwinana Consulting, did it?
No, it didn't.
And when he paid the 2.5 million on the 5th of May, I understand you regarded that as related to the purchase of property agreement he'd entered into with your mother. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that too had nothing to do with Kwinana Consulting.
It didn't have anything to do with Kwinana Consulting, but like because they were the lawyers for her who have been helping her. Like they apparently they had lots of transactions that they were doing together. So they wanted she wanted them to be able to pick up this specific transaction. So I think that was used as a reference.
Why would she want them to associate this deposit with her?
Because
because as I understand it had nothing to do with her.
It had nothing to do with her, but
Yes.
remember I was buying a property from her, and she had introduced me to El Mbanjwa attorneys. Yes, so for them to be able to pick up out of all their transactions and files and stuff, they would know which one is that one. Because I remember.
The time, I'm sorry. At the time that they paid this money to El Mbanjwa and associates to the law firm.
Yes.
The contract between yourself and Ms. Slipknot had not been cancelled. Is that right?
I'm looking at the letter now that Ms.
Yes.
Wolfmeyer have just showed me.
Yes.
It had been cancelled 2 days before.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
2 days or 3 days before. Yeah.
Yes. So, but is the position had Mr. Nzegu or JM, had they been told that they must pay the money into the lawyer's account?
Yeah, instead of Slipknot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they didn't know about the Bedford View property, or did they? That is now Nzegu.
Yeah, I would assume he did know, or maybe did not, because I'm not sure how much, what is it that they've discussed, him and my mother, but I do know that he knew that the purpose of that sale is to pay for my deposit as well. Yeah.
Ms. Hoffman.
Chair, this is just a point that I want to make, not directly to Ms. Mamela, but it's related to the evidence of Mr. Nzeku, who is coming on Monday to give evidence. And the reason I raise it is because his lawyers are present today. We had not until today, still not, received a statement or affidavit from Mr. Nzeku, but we have had discussions in the course of the week, and there was an indication that we would receive one in advance of his evidence. We would be most grateful for that. Time is running out, hopefully over the weekend, but I wanted to just highlight a particular aspect that we would request that they deal with in that affidavit, because we haven't been able to have interactions with Mr. Nzeku to this point. You see, the challenge is that this payment was not made by Mr. Nzeku, the payment not from any personal account of his. It was made from the account of JM Aviation. Yeah. And so what I'd like to request that Mr. Nzeku do in his affidavit is explain to us why the payment was made from JM Aviation, and explain to us the tax treatment that was given to this payment in the records for SARS insofar as JM Aviation's tax records are concerned. So that can just be taken note of so that it can be included in the affidavit. Ms. Kwinana, the Chair picked up on a point that I was going to make right at the end, which is your indication in your statement in response to Ms. Sambo's evidence was that this whole payment of the deposit had nothing to do with Mr. Zwane or Ms. Kwinana. We have gone through the facts, and there is quite a pivotal role that Ms. Kwinana has played in all of this. Do you accept that?
But like the payment has nothing to do with her. It's not coming from her, nor Mr. Zwane. So that's what I meant.
You meant it didn't come from them?
Yes.
But you accept that but for Ms. Kwinana's involvement in this, the deposit would not have got to pay for your Bedford View house?
No, like I don't accept that.
Why not?
Because she was not the one who bought the land.
No, but you had to cancel the agreement with her.
Yeah.
And Slipknot Investments in order for the deposit that was going to be paid to be redirected, did you not?
I did, but Chair, it's not coming from her personal capacity or maybe business capacity. So that's what I meant, that they had nothing to do with my deposit.
In the sense that she was not a payer of the deposit.
It was not coming from her.
But she did forsake a binding purchase agreement with you in order for the deposit to be redirected to the Bedford View house, correct?
Yeah, we cancelled, so, but it's not she actually was going to pay for my, the property that I was planning to buy from Eastern Cape, coming from her. So what I meant when I was responding to Ms. Sambo is that this had nothing to do with Mr. Zwane or Ms. Kwinana. Because how she had put it in her affidavit, it was as if maybe they're going to pay for me. And Chair, I just wanted to kill that narrative because even now Ms. Hofmeyer is still going through the property, and I think I have responded enough, and I did promise that I would send the supporting documentation shortly after, either maybe on Monday, to prove my state. So I'm more interested now in the link between my property and the component tender, the final component tender. Because she was there, she was talking about the final component tender, right? When you came to this one.
Yes, let's go to what Ms. Sambo said, because you were responding to what she'd said in her affidavit. You'll find that in the files on your left-hand side, Ms. Mamela, because we need to pick up Ms. Sambo's affidavit. So it's in Exhibit DD 18, and you'll find it at page 35. Ms. Mamela, if you look at the chair next to you,
okay,
there are a number of files there,
okay,
and amongst them is the bundle containing Ms. Sambo's evidence.
Okay.
You'll need to pick up Exhibit DD 18. And open it at page 35, 35.
Page 35.
Yes. Do you have it?
Yeah.
The relevant paragraph is paragraph 121. There, Ms. Sambo states in her affidavit, I cannot recall the exact date, but it could have been in 2016. Advocate Mamela verbally told me that she wanted to purchase a house and that she had put an offer in on a property in Bedford View. The offer was declined as her salary was not sufficient. Advocate Mamela then informed me that Ms. Kwinana and Mr. Zwane were going to make a plan for her. Do you see that?
I see that paragraph.
And it is not Ms. Sambo's allegation there that Ms. Kwinana or Mr. Zwane were going to pay for the property. Do you accept that?
It is not? You're saying it is not?
It is not saying that Ms. Kwinana and Mr. Zwane were going to pay for your property. Do you agree?
Yes, like, I mean...
It is simply saying they were going to make a plan for you. Do you accept that?
But, like, I mean, that's a Sibongele's statement. So I
Yes.
don't know, like, if you say I must accept, what do you mean?
No, I'm saying I want us to be clear about what this means and your understanding. Is your understanding that she was alleging here that Ms. Kwinana was going to pay something to that property?
Chairperson, remember, like, I mean, I'm not the author of this affidavit.
No,
Therefore,
she's
it will
asking
be-
your
yeah.
understanding of what
Yeah,
Ms. Sambo is saying here.
I said to her, my understanding was that, like, when she said Mr. Zwane and Ms. Kwinana, like, we're going to make a plan, like, I mean, maybe she meant, like, I mean, the money was going to be paid by them.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. So, like, I mean, also,
You interpreted the
I
plan
interpreted
to
it like
mean
that. Exactly.
to include paying for you.
Yes, so like that's
Okay.
why when she's asking,
Yeah.
like, is this my understanding? And I'm saying, like, I mean, I cannot interpret for the author, but my understanding when I was reading it,
Yeah.
that's exactly how I understood it.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, like, I mean, she also added that the offer was declined. Like here, it could also be proven that like the offer from Standard Bank was not declined. So like, I mean, I'm just like trying to balance things
Yeah.
that like, I mean, it does not necessarily mean because like Ms. Sambo stated it, it's correct.
Yeah.
No, indeed. What we seem to have clarified is that Ms. Kwinana certainly did not herself pay over money for the purchase of your property, correct?
Correct.
What she did do, though, Ms. Mamela, is move from a situation in which you owed her 2.5 million rand.
I owed her.
Yes. Well, you owed Slipknot
2.8, isn't it?
2.8.
2.5?
Apologies, 2.8.
In
You-
terms of the sale agreement.
Yes. You owed her 2.8 million rand in terms of the sale agreement. And then she agreed to forsake the 2.8 that you owed her and have the money that might have come to her go to you to purchase the Bedford View house. Is that correct?
No, it's not correct, Chair, and I refuse to legitimize Ms. Hofmeyer's perception. Because like once I said it, I agree like to what
let me say
she's
she's
saying.
giving you a chance to
Yeah.
to refute that or put
Exactly.
a different perspective,
Yes.
but to put your side of your version.
Exactly, Chair, like
Yes.
that's where I'm going. That like, I mean, it seems like, I mean, she's pushing a certain narrative. And like, I think like at the end of the day today, we'll know exactly where she wants to go with it.
Well,
But-
no,
but like, all I'm saying,
Miss Mamela. Ms. Hofmeyer is an evidence leader in the commission. She is entitled and actually she's obliged to ask questions that will probe and try and establish the truth. The rules of the commission make that plain. She's not necessarily, if you look at other witnesses that she has dealt with, she does exactly the same. So she's obliged to ask questions with a view to establishing exactly what happened, what the position is. So please don't read into that any personal motives. All she's doing is just her job.
Chair, I
But you are free. You are free to say that that approach to this issue is not justified because of these facts which
Yeah.
I'm placing before the commission. So you put your perspective fully.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Okay, the concern then, Chair, that I have, like with
Yes,
her questioning
yes.
style.
Yeah.
I understand that you're saying, like, I mean, she is supposed to be leading evidence. And, like, I mean, when you twist the question to sound like something else instead of what I'm supposed to understand, like to say, because I owed Ms. Kwinana 2.8, like when you're talking about owing somebody, maybe our interpretation are not the same. It will be like maybe she had like loaned me some money and stuff. Like we're talking about like, I mean, the deed of sale that could be cancelled. Yes, like I mean, the cancellation clause or maybe the entitlement, as she had said it, was not there. But like, I mean, I'm just like, I mean, concerned about like how she had, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
no, that's fine. I think
Yes.
the thrust of her question was, there was an agreement that you had with Ms. Kwinana's company.
Yeah.
In terms of that agreement, you were supposed to buy her property and pay her 2.8 million rand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she didn't say this, but I think it's implied. She was entitled to insist that this agreement stands, you must pay, but she was prepared to say, okay, let's cancel this agreement because you want to buy property elsewhere. Okay, but I don't want to ask the question for her.
No,
I'm
I
just
understand.
giving you
Yeah.
my understanding of her question.
Okay,
Yes.
I understood
Yes.
it that way, Chair, because like I mean,
Yes.
she was reading from Ms. Sambo's statement.
Yes, okay.
So
all
like
right.
that's why I said like I would
Yes.
not legitimize what Ms. Sambo
Yeah,
had said.
okay.
And like I mean, my understanding of her statement like then is like
Yes.
of her question is like she is trying to collaborate what Ms. Sambo has said. I may be wrong, but like I'm saying like okay, that's not what like it was meant. Like I mean, I did not owe Ms. Kwinana any money other than like I mean what was agreed upon like for the purchase of the sale, which was cancelled later. So like I mean this statement like by Ms. Sambo to say like I mean Ms. Kwinana and Mr. Zwane will make a plan does not really collaborate or justifies what she had said here.
Do you accept that unless Ms. Kwinana agreed to cancel the Slipknot investment purchase, you would not have been able to buy the Bedford View house?
Like had she refused,
Yes.
then what would be her like I mean reason for refusing?
That's not my question. I'm asking whether you accept that if she hadn't agreed to cancel the Slipknot investment agreement she had with you, you would not have been able to purchase the Bedford View house.
Yes, I wouldn't continue with the Bedford View house.
Thank you. Ms. Mamela, at the time that Mr. Nzeku or JM Aviation paid this 2.5 million into the attorney's account, that was at 5 May 2016. You were a member of EXCO of SART, is that correct?
2016.
Yes.
No, I became the member of EXCO, I think, at like 2017 when it was announced. Like I said like earlier on, Chair, that like I was the minute taker or company secretary for EXCO of SAD.
I did misunderstand that then. I apologize. I thought you said when the submission was placed before EXCO, this is the submission in relation to the final components tender, you had been a member that had agreed with the submission made by CFST. Did I have that wrong?
I said I had signed and I had signed and supported the CFST as the HOD supply chain management.
And as HOD for supply chain management, you didn't hold a position on EXCO?
At EXCO, yeah, at that time it was just GMs.
Right.
Yeah.
Apologies. And you weren't a GM.
I
You
was
were an
not a-
HOD.
Yes.
I've understood that now.
Yeah.
So let me correct that. At the time that he paid 2.5 million that was going to be used for your property, you were only the HOD of procurement at
Yes.
SART, correct? And at that time, the decision on the bids for the final components tender had not yet been concluded. Is that correct? It was still open.
At what date? Can you repeat? Like I'm
Yes.
trying to remember. Like
So
when,
he pays on the 5th of May,
yeah.
and just to help you, it was on the 9th of May that the board decided finally to award it to JM Aviation and AAR. So at the time that he paid for the property, the decision had not yet been taken on that tender. Do you accept that?
I accept that, but if you, Chair, you understand corporate governance, I'm sure the PEC, the board PEC had already made its way to the board, looking at the, on the dates. The PEC should make it to the board 7 days before the board meeting.
Unfortunately, that didn't occur in this case because the BAC meeting only took place on the 6th of May, the day after he paid the 2.5 million.
Okay, yeah, so I'm trying to understand, the BAC and the deposit, where is the link?
No, I'm asking a question of fact, Ms. Mamela.
Okay.
At the time that he paid the 2.5 million, the board had not yet decided who to award the contract to, correct?
Yeah, based on the dates of the board resolution.
Yes. And also on the date that that property, that amount was paid to be used for your property, JM Aviation was negotiating the sale price on the GPUs with SART, was it not?
Yes, which was already decided by the board.
No, it wasn't actually, because what had happened was on the 26th of April, the first email came from Mr. Ayres saying, we'll offer 225,000 Rand for the GPUs.
Yeah.
So that was on the 26th of April, and about a week and a bit later on the 5th of May, that's when the 2.5 million Rand was received. And thereafter, the board meets and then the final decision is made on the sale price. Do you accept those facts?
I don't know, Chairperson, because I'm trying to understand.
If you don't remember the dates, you can say you don't remember.
I do, Chair. I do remember the dates. What I don't understand, is the mentioning of, the deposit and the GPUs and the component. She just, rightfully reminded me that, the proposal, to SART, CEO, was made on the 26th of April. And if you check, that proposal in that email, is not addressed to me. It's addressed to the acting CEO. And the acting CEO is responding to Jules, I think, and then he's stating that he's going to follow this and that and that. Yeah.
Well, do you want to repeat your question? You just answer what you know. The question. If you don't know, you don't know.
Chair, I might remember, what happened, but I'm worried, as I said earlier on before we started, that I don't want to say yes or no on something that later on I will have to work so hard to get myself out of.
No.
Because
I understand that,
exactly.
But that's why I'm saying to you, where if you don't know, if you don't remember, you just say you don't remember. If you think it's a particular answer, but you are not sure, you feel free to say, I think that is the answer, but I'm not sure. So you don't need to commit yourself to something that you are not sure about, to an answer that you're not sure about. But you just need to answer to the best of your knowledge and ability and to the best of your recollection. Okay?
Okay.
Is that all right? Okay.
So just back to the 5th of May is the date on which the 2.5 million Rand is paid. That was about a month and a bit before you were charged with negotiating the sale price on the GPUs with JM Aviation. Is that correct?
I was instructed with other colleagues of mine, yeah.
Yes. We'll come to that in a moment. Ms. Mamela, you have given an explanation in your statement to this commission about this transaction.
Yeah.
And you have indicated in that statement that you regard there as being no conflict of interest insofar as you were the recipient of this 2.5 million. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you explain to us the basis on which you say there's no conflict of interest if you receive 2.5 million from a party who SART is contracting with?
No, I did not receive, from the party. It was coming from my mother. So there's the difference. It's not like, they were paying me from their pocket,
They did pay from their pocket. The transaction was
they were paying,
JM Aviation paying into Alan Bunch were attorneys.
They were paying for the land that they were purchasing. So when I stated that I didn't see anything untoward, and the fact that I didn't see any conflict of interest, I was still responding to their question during our meeting when they said didn't you think there was a conflict of interest? And I said from where I was sitting, in my capacity as the HOD, there was no conflict of interest because I did not sit in the evaluation team or the people that were making decision to say I'm awarding this tender to you. So that's where I was coming from with the conflict of interest.
So it's, as I understand your position, there's no conflict of interest if you're not involved in the bodies making the decisions. Is that correct?
It will be my understanding, Chair. I may be wrong, but all I'm saying is that if the decision or maybe whatever transaction has absolutely nothing to do with SAT, or it's something that is outside, and for me, I will not be taking a decision or making that decision to award that certain supplier. For me, it did not fall under conflict of interest. Yeah. You see, maybe if there was a business that we were going to conduct together, in the side, instead of them buying the property from my mother, that will be something different. So that was my understanding. And I even made an example because I even said I don't want to mention any names, that there were certain people that negotiated with JM for other projects, although they were the chairperson of SAT at that time, but they were negotiating for other projects. I did say that in my statement.
Were you aware of the terms of the conflict of interest policy that SAT had at the time in 2016?
I think I may have browsed through, but I don't remember if I had read it during the time when I was buying my property. Chair, what I did was to separate the two. The property versus the tenders, and I even said when we were discussing this, that if I had been the one who had said okay, let's award to JM and AR, then it will be seen as that conflict of interest, and then I will be expected to declare for conflict of interest. But it was not my decision to award to AR, and then also it was not my decision to sell the GPUs to JM for Swissport. So that's where then my understanding of I did not see any conflict of interest.
Yes, my question was, did you know the terms of the conflict of interest policy that operated at SAT at the time?
No, I don't remember now.
You don't remember whether you did know it or you didn't know it at the time?
Okay, I didn't know it at the time. Maybe I did not even have a copy at that time. Yeah.
How would you then know what interests you had to declare?
It's a common knowledge, Chair, that if you enter into a certain agreement with maybe a supplier for something that is involving the company that you are working for, then for instance, if I open a company outside with somebody and then they come and tender, and then when that decision to be made to award to that person, and then I'm sitting in the decision making, then I will be able to say, okay, I actually know these people, and I will recuse myself, or something that's my understanding.
Do you think the head of procurement at SAT should familiarize themselves with the conflict of interest policy?
Yes, to a certain extent.
Why only to a certain extent?
For instance, I do know from the risk and compliance chair that when you register a company and stuff there is a certain form that you feel that you are opening a business outside, especially if maybe some of the services or maybe goods could clash with what is the services of SAT or the company that you work for. So that's my understanding.
Ms. Mamela, let's go to the conflict of interest policy that applied at the time.
Okay.
You'll find it in DD 25A, and you'll need to go to the back to page, let me give you the first page of it, 436.
436.
What's the page number?
436, Chair.
Okay.
First thing I just want to highlight, if I may, about this document, Chair, is that it's the Group Conflict of Interest Policy for South African Airways, SOC management and general employees, in brackets recommended to be adopted by SAA subsidiaries. There's a whole debate in relation to the GPUs as to which applicable policy was applying. I understand we won't have that debate here because this was the group policy that would have applied to SART.
We will have.
Yes.
We will have.
You will have
I will
a.
raise what, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Well, I look forward to it, Ms. Mamela. Let's go to page 442. Clause 7 there starts provisions of conflict of interest. Do you see that?
Yeah.
It says at 7.1, prohibited use of position. SAA employees shall not use or seek to use their positions or employment with SAA to, first bullet, gain direct or indirect benefit for themselves or their family members. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Do you accept that you would unlikely have interacted with Mr. Nzeku or met him but for the supplier development workshops at SART?
Okay, can you repeat that?
Yes. Was it the fact that SART was conducting supplier development workshops that put you into contact with Mr. Nzeku?
Yes, like I said Chair, earlier on, that I met Mr. Nzeku through these workshops and stuff and I wouldn't have met him maybe to discuss these. But what I want to add is the fact that it could have been any other BE supplier who was interested in buying the property.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it's a product of your position in SART that you had access to Mr. Nzeku, correct?
Yeah.
And what this provision says is that employees may not use their positions to gain a direct or indirect benefit for themselves or their family members. Do you accept that you received a direct benefit from Mr. Nzeku in the form of the 2.5 million rand?
It can't be direct, because he was paying for the land. Yes, so you could say it's indirect.
Yes.
But Chair, with regard to this, as it says at the beginning of the page, recommended to be adopted by SAA subsidiaries. This is the first time I see this for SAT. That's why I said I'm going to raise that because I have not seen this one. What we have at SAT is what I know is the delegation of authority, all these other documentation. But I guess if it was not recommended to be adopted by SAA, I don't know, is there a documentation that proves that it was adopted by SAT?
Ms. Mamela, we'll look for it. Let's assume
You don't have it now.
that it did apply.
Oh.
Right. Then do you think that your acceptance of the 2.5 million rand was in breach of clause 7.1?
Acceptance.
Yes.
When you say acceptance, it's as if, Chair, it was the money paid to me by a supplier. And I'm saying, that was the payment for the property that was bought. So, and also I find it difficult, to respond.
Is the point that you seek to make and have sought to make for some time,
Yeah.
that payment was supposed to be paid to your mother,
Yes.
and that it was just a matter of convenience to say, since your mother was going to pass it on to you, Nzeku or JM could well just pay it to
To the attorneys.
Mbangwa attorneys.
Yes.
But you are saying that as far as you are concerned, it was money that they were paying to Mbangwa attorneys on behalf of your mother.
Yes, but I mean, for me, for
your benefit.
for the purchase of my house.
And to avoid a situation where they would pay to your mother's account and then she would have to pay to Mbangwa.
To Mbanjwa, yes.
To Mbanjwa.
Yes.
Is that the point you were making, or not really?
That's the point I'm trying to make, Chair, because how Ms. Hofmeyer is putting the question, it's as if I had benefited from JM through some payment that they received from SAT, and to JM and then to me. So I understand that you're trying to highlight the conflict of interest and stuff but you even said it's a direct benefit, and I said it's an indirect benefit because it was not coming from them directly to me, it was to my mother and then to pay for my property. So and then she said with the other part that I'm concerned with, Chair, is that she had said let's assume that it was adopted by SAT. And I'm saying this is the first time I see this document. Responding on the assumption would be quite difficult. So I think this is the part where I would say I cannot respond where we are talking assumption.
Yeah, no, the point you made about whether it was adopted, this document was adopted by SAT is a legitimate point. And they will look into it, as I understand, Ms. Hofmeyer, to establish whether it was adopted or not. Am I right?
Indeed, Chair.
Yes.
I must state it was my understanding that it was. I don't have the document before me. I've asked our investigators to obtain it so that we can clear this up.
Okay.
But I didn't want to put it without the document, so we will look for that. Then if you go down the page to 7.3.1, it says SAA employees shall refuse gifts, hospitality, or other benefits that could influence their judgment or performance of obligations under this policy. Do you see that?
I see that.
Do you think it is incumbent upon employees of state-owned enterprises to refuse benefits that might have an effect on influencing their judgment?
Yes, benefits that would influence the judgment when you are in a decision-making position.
You always tack it onto a decision-making position. Is that your clarification?
Remember, it will affect your judgment and, your reasoning and how you apply your mind if you were to take a decision in that certain point. So, if the decision has already been made and there's absolutely nothing I can do to change it, for instance, in the case of ground power units, I wouldn't agree that, it affects the judgment.
You agree with the principle?
Yes, with the principle, Chair.
But what you are saying is, as far as you are concerned, what is written here would apply if the employee concerned would have the power to make a decision.
He has a mandate to make a decision.
Yes, that's the point you are making.
Yes, Chair.
Yes,
and then I made an example of the ground power unit that the decision was made from the board and based on a contract between SAA and Swissport for reasons known to SAA.
Yeah.
And also on the component tender, the final one, the decisions was made by the board. Yes.
Well, let's move then, if we may, to the ground power units and your role in relation to their sale. Chair, I'd like to start that, if we may, at DD 25A. And I'd like to look at the relevant provision of the contract that dealt with this, and you'll find that at page 316.
You said DD page?
316. Thank you. This is an extract of the agreement between SAA and Swissport. Are you familiar with that agreement?
I saw the full agreement when I was fighting my case at CCMA.
Did you see the clause related to the SART sale before that?
The clause relating to the GPUs?
Yes.
No, the one that was sent, Chair, by procurement at SA8 had no provision that talks about the GPUs. The only time like that I got to know about this when Chaile was raising the fact that he was not happy with selling all 12, like he was prepared to sell 7 GPUs. And then the acting CEO, Mr. Malola Pirish, sent him this. I'm not sure where he got it from. He may have gotten it from SAA.
So I do want to go back to the agreement you just referred to that had a blank space for the supplier. I'll come to that in a moment. But I just want to confirm my understanding. At some point in the sale of the GPUs, did you look at clause 8.1 and 8.2 that appear on this page?
At the sale, or are you saying from my involvement?
Yes.
To
I think
that was
yes, okay.
the proposal that was put in place.
Yes.
Yes, I did look into it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So let's look at what the clause says. It's 2 clauses, 8.1 and 8.2. Could you read both of those into the record, please?
Okay, 8.1, as part of the continuous improvement of its BBBEE and promoting the government's development agenda, the handling company will subcontract some of its services or enter into agreement with 51% black-owned companies that have the representation of all either of the women, youth, disabled persons, and military veterans for the purchase of equipment required as part of its investment on the agreement. And then 8.2, the handling company agrees to purchase and or arrange purchase of all recently acquired surplus SAT GPUs at current book value, fair market value, or other such valuation as mutually agreed.
And just to be clear, is it your understanding that the handling company there is Swissport South Africa?
Yes, that's the understanding.
Right, so Swissport South Africa, just to read it in, agrees to purchase or arrange purchase of all recently acquired surplus SAT GPUs at current book value, fair market value, or other such valuations as mutually agreed, correct? And you did consider that at the time that you were tasked with the negotiation of the sale after the board had approved?
After the board had approved.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Right. I mentioned that I did want to take you to another agreement because you indicated in your statement that you had some interaction with the prior agreement when Mr. Peter had supplied it to you. Would you mind going to page 291 of the same bundle, DD25, 291, and tell me if that is the agreement you were referring to? 291.
I don't remember, Chair. I'm not sure if this is your team, they found this from my email, because what I said, on my statement is that when Advocate Peter sent it to me, I did not even look into it because he had already taken over the acting as the Chief Procurement Officer of SAA. Yeah.
No, I fully understand that, Ms. Mamela. Then let me just ask you some questions, not based on whether you saw it at the time or not, but what you make of it. If you go over the page to 292, you'll see there's a recordal at the top, whereas. Do you see that?
Yeah.
It says, whereas the carrier, now just that is a reference, you'll go over the page to Swissport South Africa. It says the carrier awarded various ground handling the carrier is SAA. SAA awarded various ground handling services to the handling company, that's a reference to Swissport South Africa, on 31 July 2012 for a 5-year period approved by the SAA board in respect of a particular tender with a number. B, due to various circumstances, the terms and conditions of the contract and service level agreement commencement date was agreed as 1 January 2016 for a period of 5 years collectively. Do you see that?
I see that.
Ms. Mamela, we had some evidence yesterday that I think some of us had some difficulty wrapping our minds around, because what had happened in relation to this agreement, this ground handling agreement at SAA, was that there had been a tender in 2012. Swissport South Africa had been awarded it for 5 years from 2012. Then no agreement was concluded, 2012, 2013, 2014, and then in 2016, they are awarded another agreement for 5 years, starting on the 1st of January 2016, without any tender process having been followed prior to that. Would your view be that that was inconsistent with procurement requirements?
You see now, Chair.
What do I see, Ms. Mamela?
That's where
I hear what Ms.
That was one
is
of my
saying.
nicest questions. I don't understand it at all, but so be it, yes.
Yeah. You see, I may state my view, right? Like, and it might agree with Ms. Hofmeyer and stuff like, and somebody else may come back. But like, remember, like, in this, I do not have, like, the full background of the Swissport. Like, from 2012, I was still at DBSA. So I was not at SAA. Like, so when all these things were discussed and stuff like that.
You are free to talk about what you have personal knowledge of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Without being seen as saying people have committed
But you may
wrongdoing,
be
right?
asking that question because you, 2015, 2016, you were head of procurement.
Yeah.
So that may be the reason, and therefore you would be familiar with the
Okay.
requirements for procurement.
So your question, Ms. Hofmeyer, is that, like, if I was in the shoes at SAA, what would I regard this arrangement?
Indeed, or if this was an arrangement at SART. The chair is absolutely correct with respect. You were the head of procurement at SART.
Yeah.
So what I'm interested in is your view as to whether an agreement entered into on the 1st of January 2016 for 5 years that's awarded to a ground handling company that is not preceded by any tender process would be compliant with procurement law as you know it.
Chair, can I not respond? Or you-
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
what is your difficulty?
you know why? Because, like, remember earlier on, I did mention that at SAD I did not apply 30% set aside,
Yes.
and here there's a 30% set aside.
yes.
So to talk on something that I was not, like, part of the negotiation, maybe. I think, like, my challenge is coming from there. But, like, of course, I don't have any dispute in terms of saying, like, of course, like, when you're running a tender,
Yes.
you have to, like, follow all these elements: competitive,
Yes.
transparency, fairness, like, giving,
Yes.
like, the bidders a chance.
Yes.
But, like, remember, like, there are certain deviations that are
Yes.
allowed
Yeah.
by the PFMA
Yeah.
and also, like, the SCM policy. So, like,
Yes.
something may have happened that I'm
Yes.
not aware of. That's why I'm
Yes.
saying, like, I don't want to commit to Ms.
Yes.
Hofmeyer because
You say
I
you
think-
don't have all the facts.
Exactly, you understand.
Yeah.
Like, so, like, I don't want to assume what happened
Yes.
because, like, I don't have the full
Okay.
facts. Yes.
I understand that. Chair, we are at 1 minute to 4. I've embarked upon the GPU aspect. There is still the components aspect. I certainly will need some time to do that. And Mr. Nzeku, as legal representatives, have already been informed that we may have to have gone over today's evidence to Monday with Ms. Mamela. So it would be my suggestion that we do adjourn and we return at 10 o'clock. Might also enable Ms. Mamela to bring those further documents that she indicated she had in relation to the sales. And then we can continue with the evidence then.
But, Chair, don't I
Ms.
have
Mamela?
Don't I have a right, like, to be asked if I'm available on Monday?
Well,
what if I'm in
well,
Eastern Cape?
that's what I'm about to ask you.
Exactly,
But
because I
she's
thought-
not the one to ask you. I'm the one to ask you.
Yes, I was going to ask that, Chair, because my understanding, like, I did say in my response, like, which I think was read aloud, that some of these decisions, like, were taken by the board, and I don't see why I should go in full detail in terms of, like, understanding why the board had taken certain decisions and stuff. Like, for instance, I made a reference to MOU, that was a board matter. Made a reference, to GPUs, that was a board matter, and then AAR, a JM final contract, that was a board decision. So, I don't know, if it's 4, can't we wrap up and...
Well,
I don't know.
Well, no. It's legitimate for you to say if there's a chance you would prefer it if we could wrap up. That's legitimate for you to say that.
I would appreciate that.
We just need to assess how much time is necessary for Ms. Hofmeyr to complete, and then of course we must have regard to our availability and your availability. Obviously, you suggest that you are available for us to continue beyond 4 o'clock for purposes of wrapping up. But of course, if in any event we might not finish, there might not be much benefit in continuing today if you are going to come back anyway. So that might be another issue to look at. With regard to what you may be asked and what you may not be asked, one can only take that on a case-by-case basis as questions get asked. You might be able, in regard to some questions, to say, because you were not involved in the taking of that decision, you are not able to throw light on that.
Yes.
And that would be perfect. But it may be that you might not be asked on the basis that you were part of decision making, but because you occupied a certain position, you would know whether taking that decision in certain circumstances was in accordance with policies of the company, that kind of thing. So you could be asked that. So you said, Ms. Hofmeyr, you think you would still need quite some time because there's another component, another part that you have not touched.
Indeed. The bad news, Chair, is that I'm on page 17 of 31 pages of notes.
Yes.
So there is almost no prospect that we would complete today.
So that might need, about 3 hours? What is left?
I'm optimistic because 2 hours or
maybe
thereabouts, maybe a bit more, depending on the questioning and, of course, your questioning, Chair. So it seems suitable for us to reconvene on Monday.
And for Monday, otherwise, the plan was to have Mr. Nzeku.
Indeed, but we anticipated a potential run over here, so Mr. Nzeku is scheduled both for Monday and Tuesday. So I'm not worried too much about taking into that time.
Yes. Ms. Mamela, we have done it quite frequently in the past in this commission that we sit beyond normal hours, where to do so would help to finish the witness's evidence so that the witness doesn't have to come back. But sometimes when one looks at the amount of time that of time that is necessary, one is able to say we won't be able to finish, and therefore another day must be arranged. So from what Ms. Hofmeyr is saying, she says at least 2 hours. Now, that seems to suggest to me that we won't have enough time. Do you have any difficulty in terms of availability on Monday so that we could wrap up on Monday?
Yes, I have a project that I have to work on in Eastern Cape on Monday.
Yes.
So, and I also don't want to be seen as if I'm not cooperating. I actually did mention to Mr. Catlin that I'm up and down, Eastern Cape, and I'm mostly in Eastern Cape and this side. So, there was that arrangement that I had.
Yes.
Which would mean if I cancel, I might lose some income.
Yes. If you are not available on Monday, would you be available on Tuesday or Wednesday?
If the commission allows,
From your side, you would be available to be here on Tuesday
okay,
or Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Chair,
Yeah.
I should just remind you that you may not be available on Wednesday, if I may.
Yes,
Except I guess the morning might be
No,
feasible.
you are right. But I would be available at least until lunchtime,
Right.
more or less lunchtime on Wednesday.
Okay, or maybe, Chair, like, I don't know, I could check
Yeah.
and notify you before I leave if I will be available on Monday. Yes,
Okay.
see if I can't move the
other
commitment.
arrangement.
That's
Okay, what we can do is that we can adjourn, and you can communicate with the legal team maybe sometime later this evening or whatever arrangement. And if the position is that you are able to rearrange your plans for Monday and you are able to come here, then we'll continue on Monday. That would be preferable if your situation permits.
So
But
like-
if your situation doesn't permit, then we can arrange that you come back on Wednesday morning.
I want to also get a commitment from Ms. Wolfmeyer. Like as she said, like she might need 2 hours. Like, I mean, are you sure about 2 hours? Like you think like maybe by 10, 11 will be done? Because like I could maybe leave
On
immediately
Monday.
afterwards, yeah.
I think when you talk about if it's Monday, if you make yourself available
If I
on
make
Monday.
myself on Monday, like maybe I can be able to drive
Well,
down.
put it this way, she estimates 2 hours, and she says, subject to my questions,
Yeah.
and there can be many, there can be many sometimes. So we could end up going to 3 hours. We are not sure. I'm not sure, and she's not sure. But I don't think that we would would take 4 hours, for example. So I think we both would think that it shouldn't go beyond 3 hours. But that's what we think.
Chair, if I may just make another possible suggestion of an earlier start on Monday, if that would assist. We could maybe start at 9:30 or 9.
Well, we as things stand, I may have a commitment, but if the position is that Ms. Memela can rearrange her life for Monday and be here,
Yeah.
we could look at the possibility of starting at 9:30. But I don't know whether that 30 minutes would make much difference in your life.
No, it won't.
It won't.
Yeah.
So shall we leave it on the basis that you will be in touch with the legal team either late at some stage this
Actually, I will
evening?
just make a call and then before I
Yes.
leave here, I will give them
Okay.
feedback. Yeah.
Okay, but we are looking at you continuing on Monday or continuing on Wednesday, depending on the
feedback.
call. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we may as well just stick to 10 o'clock for Monday.
Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed.
So if we continue with you on Monday, we'll start at 10 o'clock. Okay, no, that's all right. Thank you for your cooperation, Ms. Memela.
Thank you, Chair.
We are therefore going to adjourn until Monday. We adjourn.
All rise.